know what it would take, how long the paving is meant to last. I've been through some of these alleys that are in pretty bad shape, and that is a heck of a bumpy ride, for sure. So they definitely need attention. But, that would be my question is, is this a temporary fix? Is it a permanent fix? What's the upkeep going to look like? Those sorts of things.
Thank you, Robin. Mike Graff, do you mind if you come up and I can ask a couple questions of you, please?
Mike Graff, Director of Engineering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had talked a little bit over the last week about alleys. Can you give some of the statistic information about number of alleys that are, or percentage that are paved right now versus stone? Percentage that kind of what you were thinking of what was getting repaired with this round and what was still sitting out there?
So when I was tasked last year to come up with just a cost analysis, I drove alleys. I didn't drive every alley. There's two people in our department to try to qualify all that is rather difficult. So we put together the numbers that best served the dollar amount that we were given to look at. We were given directions on how to do that. So it's people that have paved alleys, I would say that they would probably tell you that, yeah, they're paved, but that's just because there's a little bit of asphalt on them. Doesn't mean that they're paved. So I don't have a percentage number for you. I just know that when we started looking at it, we decided to go into quadrants and start working our way out because it's so difficult when you're bringing equipment to move it around to all over town. So we tried to focus in one area, and I think obviously we started in District 1, and we did quite a bit through the winter time and moved on into Ward 5, and now we've kind of stepped back. The asphalt plants are open. They opened up actually the 14th and already broke down, so we didn't get binder down on, but we've got a very long alley in District 1 that's prepared for binder and surface. So yeah, I don't have those specifics. I'm taking them individually as I go. So.
Well, and I think we had talked maybe kind of just generalities. Would you say 50% of the city is paved alleys, or?
No, I would say probably 40%.
Is paved versus rock?
Because I think under Maury's administration, they started in the north part, worked their way back, and then they typically used their own manpower. They bought a paver, and they did a little bit of grading, and then they just put an 1.5 inches of asphalt on it. They didn't do what I would consider a longevity. Obviously, alleys don't get the same amount of traffic that streets do, so that they've held up for quite a while doing that. It doesn't make it right. But I would say actual asphalt paving that was done was probably about 40% under that.
If we did a program, I'm trying to think of where I was going with that. Do you feel like it would be realistic to look at a 10-year time frame? Or would we, in order to do it right and make sure that they meet a specification that'll hold up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just depends on obviously where the finances come from. Some years you may have a windfall, or you might find money either from the county that, like we did with the 1.1, so you're able to do more in that year. But if you're just in reality speaking, and we're looking at, let's just say a $500,000 number, then, I mean, the math is going to fluctuate because like Mr. McKinley said, that, you know, some areas are going to require an 8-inch, some are going to require 4 inches of stone and 3.5. So you're going to spread your dollars out more. Some are going to take more. So that's why when I gave you the options, you know, I tried to, I always hasten to say, if you do every alley, it's going to cost this, or if it's every alley, it's going to cost this, because as we know, every alley is different. And I'm not going to disparage any homeowner that believes that their alley is 100% pristine. I mean, if it's been down for 30 years, the subbase is deteriorated, and you just have to look at each alley in particular. So that's going to change. Again, I think myself looking at it as a consumer or as a taxpayer, that I don't know that, you know, each year might be better to sit down and say, what do we have? How much money do we have? And if we're going to allocate that money, put a stipulation on it and say, with that money, this is how we're going to do them. The engineering department doesn't really care. I'm not advocating for stone. I'm not advocating for asphalt. We'll do whatever is required of us. But again, I have to be cognizant, as you folks do, with the tax dollars. And I think we might be better served just like knowing what we have each year on the tax side, and like we have with many things, put a stipulation on how you use that money and the way that you do the asphalt. That's just the way that I would look at it.
Now, can the alleys, if they were paved, can that be part of that community crossings, or is that for roads specifically?
It's for roads specifically. In order, and I've done a lot of research on this, an alleyway would have to be a dedicated street, which then you would have to name the street, you'd have to dedicate the street, then you have to plow all of it, just like you would do streets. Now you would be dedicating an alleyway that now requires more maintenance for, which I don't know how many alleys get actual snowplow coming down them. You know, Robin stated that they help assist if they can't get a truck down there, but I don't know. I don't drive that truck. I don't know how many alleys actually get done. So there are stipulations that you have to do, and there's still no, if you take that to the state and say, we've dedicated this alley, we've named this alley, and we want to put it in system, that they still would allow it. So you could go through that process and still not get any funds from the state.
Okay. And then to further understand, do we have a general width of an alley, or is it just kind of a mix depending on how the subdivision was built when it was built? It's
a mix. I'd say standard alleys are 10 to 11 feet. Some are a little wider. There's no two-way alleys. I don't have any of that. And most of the alleys, when they were put in, were done by the subdivision. They weren't done to any particular specification. They were just access points. So although, you know, there's right-of-way, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that there's an alley right-of-way, but it's typically the easement. You know, it's for the utilities to put sewer and water and fiber optic and that kind of stuff. It was never deemed from the get-go that it would be something that it would be traveled by the general public. It would be for the use of the property owners.
And that's what that was the next question, was as far as easements go. So technically, while there may be a utility easement there, is the alley technically the property owner's land, or is it pulled separate?
It is pulled separate. It's done by the platting.
Okay.
And so there's lots of alleys that are out there that were platted but never developed. They're just grass and trees, and so the way that it was done numbers of years ago, in the plat, it showed an alley, and it showed basically a right-of-way and easement, but nothing has ever been, that I can see, that was ever put in writing how they were to be maintained from the very first day that they were ever put into where we're at now.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question. Sorry. Go ahead.
This is obviously a very peculiar situation because of all the worst of the alleys and get those taken care of? Or is it better to pick out a district and work on that for a year? Give me some of your ideas of where we need to go, at least in year one.
Well, again, I didn't go out and evaluate every alley, so I guess that's a great question. If it's very susceptible to what you think is a bad alley and what Erica might think is a bad alley, and then I've got, they're contacting you as council people that says my alley's worse than that alley over there, and then somebody has to be the intermediary, has to go out and say that one's worse and this one's worse, and then try to scale that down. Not a bad way to do it, because there are alleys that, as some folks have talked about, that are landmines. You can't get a car down them. Over the years, all we've done is either add stone to it, or if they were paved, just throw some asphalt in it. That's literally all we've done. This is the first year, or actually starting last year, this is the first time that any administration other than the Maori administration has ever talked about alleys. Not that it's not a great conversation. These people are affected by it, but trying to quantify them the same as I do a street is a lot harder.
I really respect you as a city engineer, and I think
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a different situation than we've ever dealt with before. Again, my department is not. We will do whatever the council and the administration asks us to do. That's my job to do that. I'm not in favor either way. If it helps the general public get something done. But I am a little concerned with if I go qualify some areas and then I deem it that it's stone, having to do maybe a process of having to have more conversations about it, I think that just takes more time. I think whoever's in my seat with experience or whatever, you just have to rely on them to do it, and you're going to get calls. From constituents and say, why did you do that alley and not, let me be the bad guy, or whoever sits in my seat be the bad guy, because they're the ones that's got to go out there and qualify them. And we're not always right. I mean, there's lots of alleys that we miss and still missed and probably will miss. So it's tough.
I did have a question on the percentage of stone alleys. I'm just wondering how you got that, because everywhere I've driven around town, other than new alleys, I haven't found any stone. And then, I mean, Google Street View, I drop a pin everywhere and all I see is asphalt. So I'm just, where are all these stone alleys that you're talking about?
Well, majority of Mr. Fordyce's area was asphalted. The further that you got south, it was hit and miss. So, and again, I'm not saying that I've driven every alley, but I would say if I go by an alley right now, that it's probably, I'm seeing a 60-40. When I drive an alley, I'm like, oh, that's stone, or that one has been asphalt that is no longer asphalt, now it's turned to stone. So that's kind of where I get that.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Kane, I thought I saw you.
I did raise my hand, and as Mr. Brunner commented a lot of the things that I was going to say, but I'm going to sit here and I don't have any answers. I don't have a good answer to our problem that we're facing. I think we all know that we're dealing with a finite amount of money, and if we do have a plan in place now, and that's why we're sitting here in front of this committee, because we've stoned some alleys and the taxpayers are not satisfied with that. Understand that. I was a part of the city council back in the 90s under the Ron Marion administration when we paved a lot of alleys, and the main reason was we wanted to get away from Mayor Mowry wanted to get away from the dust. It was a dust bowl in the middle of the summer in August, and you hadn't had rain for 6 weeks, and so one car drives up and down an alley, and it's a dust bowl. And you've got nice vehicles, and you either wash it by hand or you run through the car wash, and the next day it's like you haven't done anything. So I understand all that. But here again, we are dealing with a finite amount of money. If we start paving alleys, we're robbing money from other projects to pave alleys. And so what's the most important things to do? Our biggest expenditure in the city is police and fire protection. We certainly don't want to pull back there in police and fire. I would hope that we would all agree with that. So we have a limited amount of monies that we can pull from other departments, really chump change to throw at this problem. So like I said, I don't have an answer. All I know is we have a finite amount of money to deal with, and what's coming down in the next 2 or 3 years, we're not really sure tax-wise. So I think we have to be very, very careful. I don't think we need to have a knee-jerk reaction here and say, wow, we need to do this and we need to start this in the next 30 or 60 days and start paving all the alleys. And so I think we just have to tread very lightly, and I think we all need to do a lot of research as we move forward on this project. Like I said, I don't have an answer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, we had a lot of thorough discussions about this a while back, about paving, not paving, some or the others, and the cost of the projects. And there was a lot of intelligent discretion there. In my mind, this ordinance seems to approach the problem with a blunt instrument. I think it's kind of heavy-handed. Yeah, I thought we had this figured out without a new ordinance. And trust me, if I don't have an alley. If I had an alley that wasn't on a hill, I'd love for it to be paved. So anyway, but I thought we had this figured out, and it would have been without burdening future administrations and those administrations not knowing how it would be funded. It just, to me, it seems it's not unlike an unfunded mandate. There's chaos going on in Washington. There's chaos going on in Indianapolis. We don't know what is going to be, what we're going to be sitting on, what we will have. And it also, it allows for a couple exceptions, but rather, in my mind, rather than relying on the intelligence and the training and the experience of the city engineer and that department, it also includes the city council in determining the request's worthiness. I don't know beans from applesauce about paving. I would listen to, I mean, maybe there really are Republican and Democratic ways of paving streets and alleys. I don't know. I just think this, not opposed to paving alleys, good heavens, but we got to pay for it. I don't like saddling future administrations with unknown costs and how they'd pay for it. I just think we need a lot more discussion about this, and thank you.
Thank you. I see one more comment. If we can keep it fairly quick, we're going to have to close up here for the other meeting, so.
Okay. You guys were saying, you know, you guys have to pay for it, you guys have to pay for it. Alleyways and easement, through mine, I got electric going through there, I got cable going through there, and I got phone. Cable company happens to be Bright House, they gotta use that easement, okay? Duke Energy and stuff of that nature. Well, if they're gonna use an easement, they ought to be able, they ought to pay something, you know, to be able to use that easement. Why not try getting a hold of them and say, hey, you wanna use this easement? You guys need these alleys paved. They're driving big trucks down through there and stuff. Have them pitch in. You know, you ask the Marion Utility Company, hey, could they afford to? I don't know if you guys have or not, but get a hold, ask them, you know. We pay enough in our cable bill anyway, and then they're tearing up the roads and stuff. I mean, are they sitting there just tax-free, whatever, get to do whatever they want? I mean, that would be a way to recoup some of the money, you know, maybe. I don't know what your guys' I don't know your guys' situation, contracts or whatever with them, but I mean, their business, their billion-dollar industry, they got a lot more money than what it sounds like we do as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or, okay. I think what I'm gonna suggest is that we continue to look at this ordinance, and if there's some additional language or thought processes that you guys have, kind of do the same thing we did with the parking ordinance, where if you would email me any additional questions or thoughts you have, or maybe different definitions or possible languages, and see if we can't put all that together to be able to discuss from that point. I have talked to Attorney Harker about it as well, and I did look and saw that President McKinley had put a feeler out through the municipal listservs to see if anybody had an ordinance of this type as well, so that we could get some additional languages and thoughts and see what other people are doing. I think maybe we do a little more of that research along that, maybe, and I'll probably do some calls and see if we can't figure out if how other people are approaching this. And then we can have another meeting come together here in a couple weeks and work on those updates and thoughts.
Well, just like when I write my own paper, it's always perfect. So I don't think there's anything wrong with this because Marty and I helped write it. I just wanted to address what Councilman Klein had said, because I know I don't think you were at the last meeting where I addressed this, Mr. Klein. But this ordinance, the way it's written, does not set a dollar amount. I'm open to, 10, 20, 30-year plan, but it allows exceptions for a reason. If there's 10 alleys that you want in your district rock, there is a way to do it. It's not that they need to come to the council for us to give an engineering opinion. It says the city engineer and council, because my belief is that the city engineer, they're the ones that determine, okay, does it need to be replaced and how much would it cost? But then it puts it on, we'll say the people, the representatives, us, to go to your district and go to that street and go talk to those people and go, hey, we're thinking about converting your alley to rock. What do you think, right? That's the representative person in me that goes, well, let's just put it to the people, right? If they feel like they've been paying taxes for 40 years and they're gonna be up in arms, and that rock alley, if you convert it to rock, could potentially have some negative effects that we aren't aware of, well then, I just feel like that should be that conversation. We're not that big of a city that we can't do that. So I just wanted to address, that was why I put the Marion Common Council in there. It's a checks and balance, right? So, and you're right, I've heard about, well, what about future administrations? That is exactly why I've presented this. Because Ron Mowry, right, is the one that did the alleys before? And what's happened since? Every administration has ignored it until the new administration we have now. So that's I mean, everything that's been brought up, I just go, you just made my point. You just made my point. It's been ignored. Police, fire, all that's important. The problem is alleys have been ignored, and they've been ignored too long. I appreciate the mayor. I appreciate the city engineer, Mike Graff, addressing this. I just feel like maybe there should be more consideration to the asphalt. So I just wanted to make sure I said that because I know you weren't here last time.
Okay, well, why don't we do that, unless somebody on the committee feels otherwise. Just email me any language changes or thoughts on if there's a different timeline you think is better or some other way that makes, if this is something we want to go forward with, the language that makes all of us comfortable, or if we're not going to be able to find that language compromise in the middle there. I know everybody had quite a bit of discussion at the last meeting, so I'm sure there's some additional thoughts out there. So I would say, why don't we say in the next 2 weeks, and then I'll compile all that and we'll reconvene. Okay?
It also gives us more time to figure out this tax change too.
Exactly. So, okay? Does that work for committee? Okay.
Move we adjourn?
Move we adjourn? Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
All in favor, leave.
Committee adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for all of you that came and spoke. You're welcome to stay for the next meeting. We like to have people here.